A crime watchdog says an NOPD officer who spent hours inside a city-owned apartment with Mayor Cantrell while on the clock got a light punishment, and he believes the entire investigation into Officer Jeffrey Vappie was flawed from the start because of influence from the mayor. Here's our latest outside the office investigation. Does the punishment fit what happened here?
The investigation doesn't fit what happened here.
The NOPD found 3 violations against Officer Jeffrey Vappie for violating department policies of professional conduct and performance of duty. But when it came time for sanctions, an NOPD disciplinary panel gave him what the head of the Metropolitan Crime Commission calls a slap on the wrist, 2 letters of reprimand.
I certainly don't agree with the discipline involved in this. I think that this is a classic example of the mayor being a distraction, and because the mayor was at the epicenter of this matter, I think the police department handled this investigation differently than they would have had she not been involved in it. Keep in mind, from the very beginning of this, the first comments from the mayor publicly after Officer Vappie was removed from her detail was that this is a witch hunt. So she sent a message to the police department that she didn't approve of this.
Here's the mayor making that comment in March.
I think that the investigation that has been ongoing is one that we can stand by. I know initiated by PIB, one that has been thorough, even one that I would classify as a witch hunt.
Today, she released a statement saying, as they do with all matters, the Public Integrity Bureau performed professionally and conducted a fair and thorough investigation that maintained objectivity while steering clear of unprecedented outside influences. Our outside the office investigation found Vappie spending long hours inside the city-owned Upper Pentaba apartment with Mayor Cantrell, both on and off the clock, in some instances leaving late at night, even past midnight. According to PIB investigators, they tried to secure an interview with Mayor Cantrell as part of the investigation. She declined. So did NOPD consultant Fausto Pichardo, who used Vappie as a driver for a few weeks, and former NOPD Superintendent Sean Ferguson.
So those are all fact witnesses that are critically important to determine not just the administrative violations involved, but potential criminal violations that may have been involved in this.
The federal consent decree monitor blasted the NOPD's investigation, saying it reflects a cavalier attitude toward the Public Integrity Bureau's obligations and the importance of officer accountability. The consent decree monitor said PIB should have looked into possible criminal violations, something the city scoffed at. In a response to the monitor's criticism, the city's attorney wrote, "What Vappie did may look bad, it may be unprofessional, and it was in violation of his training," essentially saying it can't be proved it was a criminal violation. But the Department of Justice disagrees. DOJ attorneys from the Civil Rights Division asked yesterday whether NOPD had made a referral for a criminal investigation of Vappie.
So if it's abundantly clear to all of the other parties that are involved in the consent decree, that are overseeing the police department, and DOJ attorneys and the federal monitor, independent monitor that's appointed to this, they both flag potential criminal violations. The New Orleans Inspector General's office is looking into other instances of police payroll fraud. This is added to that.
Video showed Vappie spending hours of many workdays inside the Upper Pentaba apartment. We found him attending Hanno board meetings instead of doing police work. But the NOPD investigation concluded with 5 hearing officers: Captain Preston Bax, Captain Precious Banks, Captain Michael Glasser, Deputy Superintendent Ryan Lebrano, and Interim Superintendent Michelle Woodfork, all agreeing the proper punishment was 2 letters of reprimand.
Should he have been punished more?
Based on this investigation, I think that he should have received some suspensions.
Now Goyeneche is hopeful other agencies look into the potential violations to see if anything more serious happened during the time the mayor and Officer Jeffrey Vappie were outside the office.
So there needs to be, I think, a more thorough criminal investigation. because this administrative investigation, this PIB investigation, in my opinion, was flawed and incomplete.
We reached out to Vappie's attorneys for comment on the investigation and letters of reprimand. Brandon Villavaso and Nicholas Lindner said in a statement, "We disagree with the manner in which this investigation was conducted and its conclusion that Officer Vappie did anything wrong, and Officer Vappie is weighing his options for appeal. However, we do agree the imposed sanction was commensurate for the infractions that were sustained."